Welcome to the Cowboy Up Podcast, where talk is all about the West. This episode is brought to you by White Stallion Ranch and produced by Cowboy Spirit USA. What do Gene Autry, Dorothy Lamour, Bugs Bunny, Abbott and Costello, and Elvis Presley have in common? They all starred in movies involving a dude ranch. Historian Lynn Downey joins Russell and Alan to talk about Hollywood's sometimes inventive portrayals of the American dude ranch.
Well, morning, Alan. I guess we've talked a lot about it before. A lot of movies have been filmed on dude ranches, and of course, there's also, in the past, quite a few movies that were about dude ranches or dude ranching, and of course, we've got someone here to talk about that today. Every Wednesday here at White Stallion, they go up to Lookout, and on the way up to Lookout, they go through Movie Pass, and at least 18 of the 31 feature films that we know have been shot here, and every year or two, somebody discovers a new one. So the list might grow some more, but at least 18 of those 31 films have been shot in part up there in Movie Pass. And it's a great location because they can move the camera and get a whole different backdrop. And it's just a perfect spot for movie making.
Well, we're in the dead center of the Western movie shooting place is right here, and you can't count the number that have been shot here at White Stallion Ranch, and I think will continue in the future. So what better to have on today's broadcast than talking about Westerns?
Well, and I just read an article, I can't think of his name. It just jumped out of my head, but he's the Foreman character on Yellowstone. He just finished up a movie at Old Tucson. Because of the film incentive law, films are coming back to Arizona. We can now compete again as we haven't been able to for years. So even movies like 310 to Yuma about Arizona were filmed in New Mexico because they had that great incentive law. So We're back. And Arizona's, of course, a lot better than New Mexico for filming. So we're going to be back on Hollywood's radar. But today we have an expert on movies, and Lynn Downey's been with us. She's one of our favorite guests. If you haven't heard Lynn before, everybody who's listening, she's an award-winning author, archivist, historian. She's the current president of Women Writing the West. She's written over 10 books, including the novel Dudes Rush In, a biography of Levi Strauss. Her newest book is American Dude Ranch, A Touch of the Cowboy and the Thrill of the West. And it's the third that I know of effort to tell dude ranch industry. I always laugh when I use the word industry for dude ranching, but the dude ranch business's history. And it really, as the Denver Post calls it, highly entertaining and fact-filled, and I agree 100%. The Wall Street Journal applauded the more than 30 illustrations. So it's gotten some well-earned attention. It's a great book. It's my favorite of the three that tell the story of dude ranching, and we welcome you back, Lynn Downey.
Thank you both so much for inviting me back. I always have a good time. And thank you, Russell, for your nice words.
You're welcome. They're earned.
Well, I want to know, let's go way back. What was the first movie ever filmed on a dude ranch? Do you have any idea?
I do. It was 1918. It was a movie, a silent film called The Hellcat. And it was filmed at the Valley Ranch outside of Cody, which is a very famous dude ranch, founded in 1915. The cast stayed at the dude ranch. The movie itself has nothing to do with dude ranching. It was simply the location. It was an authentic location for the story. The cast stayed there. They filmed some of the exteriors. One of the stars was an opera singer named Geraldine Farrar, who made silent movies in the opera off-season. And she apparently didn't really enjoy the Western lifestyle. She wrote a memoir, and she said that her experience was full of discomfort and irritation.
I feel like I know that name. Was she a pretty big star of her era?
Not really. She was mostly known as an opera singer, Geraldine Ferrard. Yeah.
Well, I'm not an opera fan, so I'm guessing I heard of it from you before then.
Oh, it's in the book. So maybe that's where.
Maybe that's so. So is that pre or post Larry Laram at Valley Ranch?
That is 3 years after Larry Laram and Winthrop Brooks founded the Valley Ranch.
Okay, because they bought a ranch, because wasn't it called the Valley Home Ranch prior to their time? Because he stayed there as a guest, is that right?
Exactly. It was Jim McLaughlin's homestead or something, and then Winthrop Brooks and Larry Laram built it up and called it the Valley Ranch, beginning around 1915. So they did a lot of publicity, which really sophisticated publicity for the time, which is why they got this film crew to come out there. So that was just a location. But then the next year, 1919, there was a documentary called Wrangling Dudes. And this is one of the lost silent films. It is gone. Nobody can find it. But it was a travel log that was done as part of a series with Outing magazine. And it was filmed in Montana, and I'm assuming it has a lot of footage of dudes doing their thing on a dude ranch, and probably made them look a little silly because the ad copy used the word tenderfeet a lot. So it was probably amusing, but we'll never know because it's one of the lost silents.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Well, Lynn, I'd love to hear you talk about this. Give us a little background in what brought you into this whole genre about the history of film. And what? Well,
I got interested in dude ranching itself years and years ago when I was the Levi Strauss and Company historian. And the company had this line of clothing in the 30s called Dude Ranch Duds. And I found this catalog in the archives. I'm like, what? Special clothes just to wear in a dude ranch? So I just got fascinated with the whole concept of the dude ranch, and I started collecting dude ranch memorabilia. And I have like over 100 pieces. Not that I'm obsessed or anything. Then I really I read everything I could find about dude ranching and realized that nobody had written a comprehensive history since Lawrence Bourne wrote his book in 1983. So I wanted to look at dude ranching from the point of view of culture, and movies is a big part of that story. So I talk a lot about film in my book, and I just keep on researching it because it's just so fascinating to me. I found between 1918 and 1991, over 60 films and short subjects with the topic of dude ranching.
And so those are films that are about dude ranching, or at least it's in the title.
Yes, and the vast majority of those, dude ranching is part of the plot. And some of those are short subjects. You remember, the little short subjects they'd show before the main feature, out at the movies. And a few, maybe 5 or 6 of those were simply locations. Everything else was the plot itself, was a dude ranch.
Right. And, some of our listeners will remember, but I'm just going to back up so they know why we're talking about Winthrop Brooks and Larry Laram. Larry Laram was one of those folks that, along with the railroad, founded the Dude Ranchers Association, served as its president for, was it 18 years?
Something like that, yeah.
He was sort of the George Washington of dude ranching. and then Winthrop Brooks, his partner, ultimately, through his family heritage, didn't he become chairman of Brooks Brothers?
Yes, eventually. His grandfather had founded it back in 1818.
And that was a great connection for Valley Ranch for publicity / advertising in the Brooks Brothers store in New York.
Yes, they did a lot of advertising in New York, travel agencies. They had their own office in New York, which was the first time any dude rancher had done anything like that.
Any idea, so different collection of movies, any idea of how many movies have been filmed on dude ranches? We have 31, but none of them were about dude ranching.
That I don't know, because I concentrated on dude ranches as part of the plot, but I'm sure there's hundreds. Well, one of them was Spencer's Mountain, the Henry Fonda film from 1962. It was filmed at the Triangle X in Jackson Hole. And they actually had the movie premiere in 1963 at the Dude Ranch.
At Triangle X.
I think so, yeah.
No kidding, yeah.
Yeah.
Turners have had it since the beginning.
You bet.
Only Dude Ranch in a national park.
Wow.
It's actually within the park there.
Amazing.
So we had at Rancho de la Osa, another ranch we're involved in, we have a couple of connections to film and a movie written or taken from a book written by Dane Coolidge called A Son of His Father, and that's also a lost silent. And then Tom Mix did at least one movie. It's sort of unclear. He might have done two at Rancho de la Osa. But again, not about dude ranching. Sometimes the ranch was part of the story, as in Dane Coolidge's A Son of His Father, which was also his book, the name of his book.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that Dude Ranch as a location was a perfect and authentic way to advertise that your film is about a ranch. You know, they looked like ranches. They looked authentically Western, and producers loved them as location places.
How many of your guests today come here or are drawn to here because of your tie-in with the movies and with, you know, the history that you have with the movies?
I think it probably is a part of the picture that makes people choose us instead of other ranches. I always feel like they think that, I mean, I guess I think of it this way. If 200 plus TV productions and 31 feature films have been shot somewhere, it might have something interesting going on. I don't know how many people. I think movie history really grabs people. You know, when I've gone to the Empire Ranch saying, boy, they line out to hear about the movies and the movie history. I think Hollywood has an impact on Americans and the world that's hard to overstate. I don't know if it brings them here. I think City Slickers, if we go back to that, and then if we go to Yellowstone today, I think when there's a big production or a big series that has the West and cowboys, and whether it's modern or not, those two are set in the modern era, I think it has a huge impact. I mean, City Slickers sent more people to dude ranches than anybody ever. You couldn't have bought that with, you know, if everybody sold their ranch and promoted it, they wouldn't have done what that did. It was unimaginable.
How many of your guests ask you today about some of that history? And
you know, people still, City Slickers is a modern classic. They still talk about it, you know. Praise Billy Crystal and all those guys.
Well,
but
I'm sitting here in my office and I have the City Slickers movie poster on my wall. I'm just going to turn left and there it is. I have that on my wall. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, I love it because it was not about a dude ranch. In fact, early in the movie, if you remember, the owners of the cattle ranch go, this ain't no dude ranch. And it wasn't. It was a cattle drive, and things went bad, and there were a couple of bad wranglers, and nothing went very well. And yet they brought in the herd, and it all turned into a great ending.
Do you show some of those movies here to your guests when they're here?
We do. We have them available, and some self-select to watch them.
Yeah.
And some of the movies that were shot here, we recommend, and they enjoy doing that. Talk about Tom Mix. I've got that here that we should ask you about that.
Yes, he was in 3 Dude Ranch themed films that I could find. One of them was from 1925. It was called The Lucky Horseshoe. Another one in 1925. This one's really fun. It's called Hard Boiled. And he plays a dude whose rich uncle asks him to go west to inspect his dude ranch in Boiling Springs. And he has to pretend to be a doctor. He goes there incognito so nobody knows what he's up to while he's checking out why the dude ranch isn't being managed very well. And he and Tony the Wonder Horse thwart a robbery and a kidnapping. on the Dude Ranch.
It was kind of Yellowstone-esque back then. Murder and kidnapping. And
there you go. And then 1930, there was another one called The Big Diamond Robbery. It's a very complicated plot having to do with a big robbery of a diamond ring. But you know what I discovered doing all this research? In the early years, up until like the late 30s and early 40s, there is so much crime going on these dude ranches in the movies. And
Did they just attract all those people, or just?
Well, you know what I think it is think about really great crime films or mysteries. They're set in sort of an isolated or, insulated kind of world, an English manor house or an isolated house on the coast or whatever. So you have this dude ranch, and it's, out in the wilderness, and it's its own kind of world. And so there's the robbers, it's a place for them to hide out. That's often what they're doing. They're hiding out at the dude ranch. And then the dude ranch cowboy has to thwart them, or the dude who comes out for vacation eventually, cowboys up at the dude ranch and thwarts the robbery, and he mans up because he's at the ranch and he has solved this crime. And I think it's a plot device to show one of these common themes that I saw throughout these movies, which is people go to a dude ranch and they're transformed. They come from back east. They're sort of this bumbling dude, and they are challenged by something in the West and at the dude ranch, and they emerge. They triumph over this adversity, and they emerge transformed. And if you think about it, that's why people think City Slickers is a dude ranch movie, because that's exactly what happens to the main characters. All three of them, those three guys, their lives were a mess. And they go to the cattle drive, and they all meet challenges, and they're transformed by the end. Well, that's the theme I see throughout all these films.
Well, that theme is repeated again and again in a lot of Western films, isn't it?
Exactly. And also the fun thing about the crime on these dude ranches is you have very Western type crimes. There's, salting gold mines and, stealing from gold mines. And there's one very bizarre Gene Autry movie where there's a theft of helium from a ranch that he has to thwart. I don't understand that at all, but that's one of them.
Wow. Well, we gotta take a break, but you've answered my question now.
Oh, good.
Because I always thought, why did City Slickers, other than being just a very, very good movie and great characters and understandably a popular movie, I never questioned that, but I thought, why did it? This was a mess, and it wasn't a dude ranch, and yet it was. You said it. It was a transformation, and people can relate to that.
Exactly.
They may not really want to be transformed, but the idea sure looks good out there. All right, so we better take a break, and we've got Stuart Rosebrook, our great friend, the editor of True West magazine, and he's going to update us on what's happening at our favorite magazine, True West.
Well, indeed. Thank you, Russell. Thank you, Alan. And Stuart, we're glad you're here. You're on. Tell us what's up. What's the news from True West? You're on, my friend.
Well, it's great to be back. And talking about True West magazine, our upcoming May issue is going to be one that I think is a collector's item. We celebrate swinging doors, dance hall girls, and whiskey, as well as Black Bart, America's most prolific poet stagecoach robber, in the May issue. It's a time to get Western and pack your bags. And when you head out west to stay in a great hotel or historic saloon, or visit a historic saloon, or stay at a dude ranch, we have got a brand new guide to 216 authentic Old West saloons that you need to visit before you die.
Now, I know of a few people who will certainly buy the magazine for that.
I think it's a lot of fun. You might as well go down to the White Stallion in Tucson and make it your headquarters to go tour some of those great saloons in southern Arizona. And I would also say that there's a fun article in here by Jan McKell Collins called "Don't Bet Against a Sporting Girl," about how soiled doves tried to beat the odds against hypocrisy and politicians in the Old West. Oh. So I really think there's something for everybody in this issue. And if you love Yellowstone and 1883 and the new series 1923, we've got a great town trip to Cody, Wyoming, and which is, of course, the great gateway to Yellowstone. And so this issue is focused on getting people up and out and traveling across the West and enjoying where you can walk, sleep, and eat and drink where history happened. And so that's really what I love to do working at True West, is inspire people through history and getting them out on the road to experience it themselves.
That's right. Experience history. Just don't read it. Experience it.
That's right. Get on the road, pack your bags, and go and discover it and enjoy it from the ground up. And that's really what True West loves to do, is get people out there on the road and enjoying our Western heritage and learning about it for themselves, whether it's the first time or the 10th time. Get out there and enjoy it and learn something new and experience our great West, our great lifestyle.
That sounds great. That magazine, I bet it's worth about $49 an issue, right? $49 an issue? It certainly is worth that, but you actually have a deal, huh?
That's right. Well, if you want to subscribe for $39.95, you can get 10 issues a year and access to our archives and all the going back 70 years, and read it online as well. And you can find the magazine at your local grocery stores and Barnes & Noble. And, of course, you can go online and order it and have it delivered to your own mailbox.
And I was telling some of my friends about the fact that we were working and kind of helping to promote you. And the one man just said to me, he said, my wife grabs the True West before I ever get a chance to read it. So that's a real commendation for you. So.
Well, we're very lucky to have authors we work with who we've got a new excerpt, an exclusive excerpt in this issue by John Bosenecker on his new book on Black Bart. And I think people will find it really...
yeah, that would be great. And by the way, I can tell you, I was putting together a story, particularly, for the African American celebration and making it positive. And I recommended the article on Bass Reeves. And they got a copy of that, and they were thrilled with that article. Wonderful.
Yeah, I think Bass Reeves is one of the most fascinating characters in the Old West, and really, way ahead of his time in terms of law enforcement. And Judge Parker really needs to be given some due for hiring the African American lawmen and putting them on the U.S. Marshals Force and sending them out into some of the most dangerous territory out there in the Oklahoma Territory, and tracking down some of the baddest men in the West.
Right. I had a friend in education, an African American guy. He said, if I had my way, every young African American child would be taught Bass Reeves. And that's the truth. It's in True West. Good.
That's exactly right. And you can read all about the heroes and heroines of the Old West, as well as a few of the villains and the bad guys, and as well as the entrepreneurs who helped build the West. And so I think that's also a fun part of it. And I was actually just editing a story for next month in Frontier Fair on a immigrant butcher named Carl Look, who established a butcher shop in Sioux City, South Dakota. And his legacy lives on 140 years later. It's still one of the best known Western butcher shops in the state of South Dakota. And, those are the kind of legacies that built our West.
Absolutely.
Common folk and notorious individuals, as well as entrepreneurs that had a vision for what our West could be.
Well, if you want to know anything, if you like Yellowstone, if you like 1883, whatever you do, is if you really want to understand the history of the West, there's a lot of good stuff out there, but number one is truly True West. So website again, Stuart.
TrueWestMagazine.com will get you to the archives and what's happening in the magazine right now. And you can also check us out. We've got a good social media going right now on Facebook and YouTube. Bob Bell has a monthly video that he's doing on many subjects. And so follow us on different social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and you'll learn, and you can keep up with us and however you like online, and then get a subscription and enjoy us monthly in your mailbox.
Very good. We are going to do just that. Thank you. We'll see you next month. All the best, my friend.
Thank you so much, Sam.
I was thinking, Lynn, it's interesting. I've said this on the podcast before. People ask us about Yellowstone all the time. What a phenomenon. And they want to talk to us who live the lifestyle, at least similar. We don't have helicopters and fancy trucks, but we ride horses.
That's what I always joke on.
Yeah, we ride horses and have. So somebody said to us, I'll just digress for a minute. We showed up to pick up some horses, and they said, "Oh man, you're a dude ranch. We thought you'd come in with a Yellowstone style rig, and you came in with this." And we say, "Yeah, that's us." But people ask us about Yellowstone all the time, and my standard answer is I love it. It's absurdity wrapped in reality, and I'm going to back that up to your salted gold mines and your kidnapping and your murders and your saving this and that in the Tom Mix and Forward movies. It's kind of the same theme. It just doesn't have AK-47s and bombings, right? It's kind of the same theme.
It's exactly the same thing. And it's also kind of what people expect from a Western. They want good guys and bad guys. Black and white. And think about all the other Westerns that, movies about Tombstone and the Dodge City and all of that. You've got a good guy and a bad guy, a hero and a villain. You've got a great story. And if you put it on a dude ranch, it's even better because you also have the dudes, and sometimes they get roped into the story. There was a movie made in, what year was it? 1938. John Wayne and the Three Musketeers in Red River Range. And it's all about cattle rustling, but there's this side plot of dudes at a dude ranch are inadvertently involved in cattle rustling. They think it's part of the dude ranch experience, and they're actually cattle rustling.
Is that movie in existence?
It's Red River Range. It's a little hard to find online, but you can find it. John Wayne, one of the Three Musketeers. I can't remember who the other two Musketeers are.
I love it. It's perfect.
It was a whole series, and I can't remember who the other Musketeers were, though.
So,
but you're right.
You mentioned Gene Autry. He had a connection, Dude Ranch movies?
Oh, yes. His very first film that he was featured in was 1935, a Ken Maynard movie called In Old Santa Fe. And it has a dude ranch plot that involves a big horse race on a dude ranch and Ken Maynard with his famous horse Tarzan. And the producer wanted just a musical interlude. So they hired this new up-and-coming guy named Gene Autry to sing in this musical interlude. And he was completely uncredited in this movie. But when the movie came out, people went bonkers for him. They re-released the movie and gave him really good billing in this film. And there were at least 3 other films that he did throughout the 30s that featured dude ranch plots. There was Oh, Susanna in 1936, set at the Mineral Springs Dude Ranch, and he was backed up in that movie by the Light Crust Doughboys, very famous singing group. Western Jamboree in 1938. That's the movie about the helium on the nearby ranch, which is kind of bizarre. And then Gold Mine in the Sky, which is mostly famous for the song, of course, also features a dude ranch. So his early films were about dude ranches.
Well, now the 1940s was the heyday for dude ranch movies, but they've transformed since then. Do you want to talk just a little bit about how they've transformed since the 40s?
Yeah, I think in the 40s, one of the reasons that producers started making a lot more dude ranch films, and they sort of put crime behind them by then. For one reason, a lot of Hollywood stars had been going to dude ranches. And I think producers took note of this and thought, we can take advantage of this. And of course, Westerns were undergoing another huge wave of popularity. And it was also really easy to film at a dude ranch. If you're an LA film studio, some of the location filming in Southern California was easy. So you see a lot of these films that are more the romantic comedy theme in the 1940s. And that's because a lot of them were made during the war. And you need a little more lighthearted fare during World War II. So you get Some fun films like Ride 'em Cowboy from 1942, which is about a fake cowboy and about rodeo, most notably because it features a short bit with Abbott and Costello, oh, by the way. And then you get films about burlesque queens going to dude ranches like Dorothy Lamour and Ann Sothern. And then and there's also more and bigger movie stars are showing up in these films in the 40s because it becomes the kind of film that you want to be in if you're a movie star. And that you really start to see in the 40s. Dorothy Lamour, Dick Powell, Hopalong Cassidy, Jack Haley, the Tin Man from Wizard of Oz, and my personal favorite cameo appearance of all time, 1948, two guys from Texas, Bugs Bunny.
Well, where are Westerns right now in the movie making hierarchy? How do they fit in, and how many are being shot, and what's the situation now?
Well, I don't think there's been a Dude Ranch related movie or a big one since City Slickers. I mean, of course, as we've talked, it's not a Dude Ranch movie. Dude ranching as a theme has really migrated to television. And you see more TV related, dude ranching. But if you look at the Western itself, obviously Yellowstone in 1883 and 1923, it's all having a huge impact. And I always say the Western, first of all, the Western will never die. I mean, we know this, the three of us, we know this. But Westerns become more popular. You know this as well. They sort of wax and wane. And I think we're at a real peak for the Western right now. And I think it's because so many of the themes are resonating with American culture right now. We like simple stories of good and evil. And just the whole Western lifestyle, the beautiful landscape and the big wide open spaces. It's soothing to people when things are a little bit kooky in culture. That's sort of the way I look at it. When we're feeling a little wobbly as a people, the Western becomes more popular. It's in our DNA. The Western film is in our DNA as Americans. And the West is a place where people are transformed. You don't just see that in Dude Ranch movies. You see that in just about, I think you said that, in just about every kind of film about the West. We will always need the West.
What are some of your current favorites that are Dude Ranch, being filmed now?
I really don't know. If they're being filmed now, I don't know about them.
Well, what are the ones that are out, that have been filmed?
Well, I have a couple of favorites, one of which is, of course, the City Slickers. You just can't beat it. One of my other favorites is from 1939, and it's a movie called The Women. And it's from a play by the famous playwright Claire Booth Luce. The story is about a bunch of rich Park Avenue women and their marriage problems. But there's a tiny little scene in the middle where they all go to Reno to get a divorce. Because in the 1930s, after 1933, Nevada passed a law that if you lived for 6 weeks in the border of Nevada, you could get a quickie divorce. So dude ranches started opening up just to host all these future divorcees. And that's part of the plot of this film. And these rich women, they go to I think it's called the Bar T Dude Ranch, run by Marjorie Main, Ma Kettle. And they wait out their divorces and they change their clothes when they're at the ranch. It's that transformation theme again. So they're in alien territory at this divorce ranch, and they have to dress Western. My personal favorite is the character, the actress Mary Boland. She wears jeans, a plaid flannel shirt, 5 ropes of pearls, and a diamond brooch. Now, because that's how you should dress on a dude ranch.
Well, it doesn't everybody.
Of course, that's how I dress.
And of course, as you know, Lynn, I've never yet given you a dude ranch fact you didn't have, which I'm still working on it. But as you know, there was a book written, Divorce Seekers, which is a book, and it's a pretty big book, written about the history of the Nevada ranches that were doing just exactly what you described. So, I mean, that movie was talking reality, really.
And that's an excellent book. The co-author, Sandra McGee, lives right here near me in California.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's an excellent book, and I believe she's coming out with another edition.
So I think you've told us before. Talk about Orson Welles. How did he? What's his connection?
In 1940, he sent writer Herman Mankiewicz to the North Verde Dude Ranch in Victorville, California, to write the first draft of Citizen Kane. Victorville is in San Bernardino County. It was a huge dude ranching center. George Pearson had this huge dude ranch there. It's a rodeo and dude ranch center in the 40s. So Mankiewicz has a broken leg. He likes to drink, but there's no liquor at the dude ranch. But even with his broken leg, apparently he manages to get into town so that he can get his drinking done. And I think that was part of the plot of that movie Mank that came out, I think a year or two ago. I can't remember what streaming service it was on. But I love the fact that you can draw a line from dude ranching to Orson Welles. And then another sort of interesting link, of course, Citizen Kane was very not loosely based on William Randolph Hearst.
Right.
And William Randolph Hearst's mother, Phoebe Apperson Hearst, had a piece of property here in the San Francisco Bay Area. After she died, Orson Welles, William Randolph Hearst sold the property, and it was a dude ranch in the 1940s. It was called the Old Hearst Ranch. It was a huge dude ranch in Pleasanton, east of San Francisco.
And Hearst had a ranch here. The Hearst family had a ranch, but cattle ranch. It was goes back to land grant days, called Little Boquillas, which lines the San Pedro River, and it actually joins our ranch, Tombstone Monument, Three Brothers down there in that area. So the Hearsts have some history there. Well, I think it might surprise people, and they ask us, of course, who's been a guest at the ranch, and we've had some celebrities, and we're not a celebrity destination, but we have a pretty all-star list of folks who made movies here. I always remember I had to ask her age. She was English, and this was several years ago, and she was interviewing me for a TV show, and she said, well, I think you've had some famous people make movies here. And I said, yes. And I went through the list, and she just looked at me blankly, like and so I said, you haven't heard of any of these people, have you? And she goes, no, not really.
Oh, no.
So we didn't get anywhere until we got to George Clooney and Ronald Reagan. And of course, she only knew Ronald Reagan for a different reason. She hadn't heard it. I don't think she knew he was actually an actor once. But, Jimmy Stewart shot one of the considered best Westerns ever made, Winchester 73. Gene Autry shot a movie here, The Lone Ranger, George Clooney, Ronald Reagan, Robert Young, Robert Wagner, Glenn Close. I mean, it's a big list. Who else that people would know that aren't 28 years old from the UK? Who else has been in Dude Ranch movies?
I know that Barbara Stanwyck and Robert Taylor stayed at a dude ranch as a couple right after they got married. I can't remember which one it was. So they were among the Hollywood stars that enjoyed visiting a dude ranch. Cary Grant loved anything Western, and he stayed at quite a few dude ranches, and he loved Western clothing. When I was the historian for Levi's in San Francisco, we had a collection of letters from the 50s between Cary Grant and the company sales manager. He loved Levi's Western shirts, and he was quite the horseman. So somebody wrote a self-published book called Cary Grant on a Dude Ranch, and it's about the time they stayed on the ranch. They didn't identify where it was, though. I guess they were trying to keep his secret.
Oh, that's too bad.
I know.
Of course, it wasn't here. He was my mother's favorite actor. Her second favorite actor was James Garner, and whenever we filmed, she really didn't care. But when James Garner was here for New Maverick, she went up just to meet him, and she was a little disappointed, honestly. But he was a little busy, and he didn't. But she loved Cary Grant. So.
Oh, who doesn't?
Well, what are you working on now?
Well, I just finished writing the sequel to Dudes Rush In, and it's the same story. It's my the H Double Bar Dude Ranch in Tribulation, Arizona, set in the 1950s. And the sequel is titled Dude or Die.
Great title.
Thank you. So I'm going over the proof right now. We're getting the book ready to send out to reviewers, and it will be released on October 15th. And I'm also taking my first novel, Dudes Rush In, and I'm writing a screenplay. I'm adapting it as a screenplay right now.
So you write a good article or good book, and then the movie to follow?
I should hope so. I mean, I've never done it before, but, it doesn't hurt to try.
I was going to ask you if you'd done screenwriting before.
I never have. It's a very different way to write. So I thought fiction was different enough from writing nonfiction, but screenwriting, whoa, that is a whole different part of my brain, and it's just as joyful as any other kind of writing. It's different, and I'm really enjoying the process, and we'll see what happens.
Very cool. Well, that's exactly what we need. It's interesting. Every dude rancher whose ranch is on the internet, which is every dude ranch, has been contacted probably between 20 and 50 times by reality show productions. And I just am absolutely amazed that there's never been a dude ranch reality show because, there's lizard lick towing. There's a show about towing companies. So, and a pawn shop was a hit show for years. So I'm surprised, although most ranchers wouldn't touch it with a 1,000,000-foot pole. But we've talked to a few because you can't overstate the power of Hollywood. So I hope your screenplay gets picked up and your book's a good one. And people should buy that book, Dudes Rush In. I don't read a lot of fiction. I enjoyed it. It was great. And,
thank you, Russell.
And people want to really an entertaining read on dude ranching. And you were very fair. If I'm right, you'll correct me. There were 3 dude ranches that you mentioned in your nonfiction book. America, is Valley Ranch, Eaton's Ranch, and OTO because of their historic place in history.
Yeah, I consider them the founding ranches. Yeah.
And so the rest of us, we're just there in spirit and in a general place in dude ranch history. But
you're part of that. The timeline, you're the descendants and the living and thriving descendants, and I love that about dude ranching.
Absolutely, and those books are available anywhere, right?
Yes,
they're still in print.
They're still in print and on my website, LynnDowney.com, and Amazon and all those other online places.
And so Lynn Downey, that's LYNNDOWNEY.
Right, just like Robert Downey Jr., no relation, oh darn.
Yeah, that's, if you could get him to do a dude ranch movie, that would be helpful.
Yes, it would.
Yeah, we would be all for that.
Well, I've just been privileged today to sit here and listen to the two of you talk because it's listening to the pros kick the football back and forth, and it's just thrilling to sit here and listen to that. So it's been a kick for me.
Thanks, Alan.
Well, thank you. And Dudes Rush In is the first of 2 books now, at least, and then American Dude Ranch. And coming up, the great title, Dude or Die. That's kind of how I live, actually. Dude or Die. Thanks, Lynn.
Thanks, guys. Thank you both so much.
Been fun.
Here at White Stallion Ranch, we say girls and horses, they're just a match. And we see it every day. In fact, I think if it weren't for the females' love for horses, I'm not sure dude ranching would still be thriving. It just is a trend we keep on seeing, women coming together to enjoy the dude ranch and horses being that central experience. They come without their husbands if they have them, or they're just coming together and they enjoy the variety of activities, but also feeling safe and comfortable and just not having to worry about much. Rooms, meals, activities, and of course, all that horseback riding is the central experience that brings them all together. www.whitestallion.com is where you find out a lot more, the whole website. And if you'd rather talk to somebody, we have great people answering the phone at 888-977-2624 or whitestallion.com. You know, Alan, I'm thinking about, Lynn Downey's first effort at screenwriting, and of course, we're big Lynn Downey fans, but I'm going to really hope for the best on that one, because I think that, it's the right time, because the Yellowstone phenomenon has really drawn a focus to the West. And what's interesting about Yellowstone, as opposed to its prequels, I guess, is that it's modern era. So I think what it says to people is you can come out West and it's still kind of wild. And it's still got these sort of clear lines of culture and right and wrong, and things are a little less blurry. And I think also the transformation aspect that Lynn talks about. And there is nothing more powerful, as we already talked about, than Hollywood/entertainment, whether it's streaming or it's movies or it's TV. So, as a dude rancher, I'm just cheering her on. Let's get that book going.
You're riding the crest of a real movement.
I think so.
Yes.
Okay, fess up. Did you think that City Slickers was a Dude Ranch film? A Western shout out to Stan Houston's production company. Let us know if you have guest suggestions or topic suggestions. What would you like to hear about and learn about? Go to our website at cowboyuppodcast.com and let us know. That's cowboyuppodcast.com. And tune in next week when the Cowboys convene for more interesting conversations about the West. Until then, I'm Lynn Weezy Sneed, reminding you to sit tall and ride safe.